Hi everyone, I'm Matt Jordan from Jordan Fabrics, and today we're going to make the harvest pattern into a quilt. The harvest pattern we're going to be making is a pattern from Cozy Quilt Designs, and it's a strip club pattern, which is what they call them for all their patterns that use 2.5-inch strips. The size we are going to make is the twin size, which takes 37 of 2.5-inch strips. We will also need a background, a border, some cornerstones, and a few other things. But let's get started on those strips, and we'll get those other things ready when we need them. You can of course start with a jelly roll that's already made, but I happen to have a lot of scraps left over from the Kansas Troubles line that we've been cutting into different kinds of patterns. So today I'm going to take these scraps and I'm going to cut a jelly roll out of them. These fabrics all happen to coordinate nicely with each other. But for the pattern we are doing today, and for the cutting we are doing, you can use any fabrics you have that coordinate with each other color-wise, pattern-wise, or anything you like. I think the only requirement is that you have approximately, for your strips, 3.5 inches, so you can get a nice clean cut on both sides, and the fabric should be full width, selvage to selvage. I went through the scraps and found about 40 fabrics, which I think will work great for this project. I'm going to start to iron them. Because these are scraps, it is important to lay them out, get them as straight as you can for your cutting, and iron them up a little bit. You'll be very happy you did, and you'll have a much better finished product. This is the last piece of the 40 pieces of scrap that I'm going to be cutting, and I have 5 stacks with 8 pieces in each that I'm going to cut. I lined up one side as close as I could to each other, to these edges, and when I cut you'll see why, because I'm going to start here and get a nice close cut, and then I'm going to go with my 2.5. You can do this any way you like. You can cut 1 piece at a time, 3 pieces. It's just an idea, just to make us aware of all the scrap fabrics we have, and we can put them to good use. I'm going to start with this stack of 8 here, and I'm going to find a line that I'm going to line up to be sure that all of my edges are across this particular line. It could be any of these lines, but this particular one, which happens to be the 1-inch mark here. I'm going to do this without a weight, this first one, but I should really have a weight. And I'm going to just use my left hand. There we go. So see that, excuse me, that cut all those 8 strips very close, lining them up together, and then putting it just a little bit over that line. To make my next cut, I'm actually going to just turn this around. And the reason why is when I put, this is my straight edge again where I cut. When I put the template down on the 2.5 here, this helps support it. So if you have a little something around to support it, it's on the level, and it's so much easier to cut and balance and keep the template here from moving. First 8. I do a little spot here at the 2.5 to help me line it up better. Just a little spot there. Keep things very accurate. And this time I'm doing backwards, so to speak. I'm not having anything support the template on this side. And it can be done. I just wanted to show you, though. I've got to be a little more careful. Okay, looks good. So I'm cutting the strips for the project we're doing, but you can see here I've still got some very nice fabric left here, scraps, that I could cut into other types of strips. So, you know, let's pretend I want to get a few more 2.5-inch strips here. I'm just going to put my template back on. I won't get all of them at 2.5 because some of the pieces are smaller, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and cut. You can see I take my time when I cut, especially with these templates. Sometimes they're a little slippery. So this one didn't make the cut, so to speak, but this one did, and there's many more in here that probably did. And I have some more extra strips for my project. Super. Okay. We have 8 fabrics in each of these stacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times 8 is 40 pieces. This is the jelly roll that we're going to use on our project now. Our next step now is to pick a background for our pattern, which is of course the harvest that we're doing, and cornerstones. These little square pieces right in here. So I have picked Vanilla Grunge. It's a Moda fabric. It is a textured look, and I think the fabrics we have will pop right off of that. And I have picked, this is called Black Dress, also Moda Grunge fabric they call it, and it's got that nice texture, but it's going to pop out of there too and give a nice strong cornerstone. We are going to do some sub cuts on our strips and also some cuts on the grunge fabrics. Now I can't give you the numbers for those because it's not our pattern. It's from Cozy Designs, which is an excellent pattern company, easy to follow. I'll get started on that. I've got the cutting done, and we have Eva here, our trusty sewer, doing some sorting, and she's going to sew for you guys, and she's going to put together a complete flower.
I think I need these two of the big ones, two of the small ones, the white, the cream, the dark. This could be the strip. I will put it together and I will cut in 2.5, but I will sew first. Attach it to that. Okay, I'm going to press. This is gonna be all the pieces for the center, the 2.5 strips. Now I'm going to attach the corners. Okay, this is right here. Take it to the machine. I mark a little bit, but people can, they can write it with the pen. And this is, we turn it to this is got the opposite side. See, that's gonna be the flower. It's like your mom's playing the video. And this is the other part. See, they go one that way and the other one this way. The opposite side is. Okay. And the same kind of dry iron and just a little bit of steam. Trim it like it. Okay. I'm going to start making the flower. Over here. And I'm going to get these pieces and go into the machine. This goes here. Okay. I saw the strips, and the strip goes to there. Okay. Start getting the flower. This goes here. This is, you can pick your colors. These 2 colors. I will use the green and the black. I put a pin, like your mom said, like Donna says here, to match the seams. See, like Donna said, you put a pin and match perfect the flower there. And I do the same thing here and this side. See, it's right. The pinning is such a great idea because it comes perfect. You can see the line there, the flower. It looks so beautiful. There is the flower. It's very simple to do it. Press exactly like Dana says, just kind of dry, because we don't want to stretch the fabric. And just give it dry and steam. Again, I had the 2 flowers here. This is half of the black, and I will put this is between here, and this is going to be right here, and the sachet goes right here. Okay, this is go between the flowers, between the two squares, right here. go inside and this is go in the outside, and fits perfect. Okay. See, it's right there in the center. Turn inside, we turn the seams inside. Okay.
Eva's got the first half of this block done, and I think this quilt is going to be very nice. We're going to take a look at that quilt later, but while Eva's over there sewing it, Donna did the harvest pattern a few years ago, and there's a lot of great hints and tips on here, so if you'd like, let's take a look.
Let's make this quilt. Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a quilt called Harvest. It's a really fun pattern from Cozy Quilt Designs, and it's made with 2.5-inch strips. Now, I already made this one time and I've got it hanging up here. So it's made with one block, which is made up of 4 sections of the same block. So it's like a one-block wonder, which makes it really easy to make. Now I used a really dark cornerstone here, and I found that that's critical because the first time I made it, I actually used this in the cornerstones and it faded in too much. So I've took it apart and put in the dark cornerstones. Looks really, really good like that. Now this is a batik version, but today we're going to make this with some prints, some really bold prints. So Matt has already cut the strip set for us. So look at how fun these prints are. We've got leaves, we've got sunflowers, pumpkins, berries, and they're all nice, rich fall colors. And I'm going to use a little bit brighter of a background because I think these dark colors will show up really nice against it. And that's what I'm going to use for the cornerstones, something nice and dark. So I'm going to ask Matt to cut out the backgrounds, and then we will get started sewing. I've taken all of my strips and I've made the subcuts. So you can see the pieces here. We've got pairs. All of these are in pairs. So we've got all these different colors, and then we've got a bunch of single squares that are 2.5 inches. So the subcutting, just follow the pattern. It's really, really quick and easy. I had Matt cut all these backgrounds because he is way faster at this than I am. So these are going to be for sashing between the blocks. Here's our dark little cornerstone, really a nice contrast there. We've got a lot of little squares, some long borders for when we're done, and then we kept some of these long and a couple of the strips long because I stitched them together, and then we're going to cut these here, and that'll save us some steps. I went ahead and stitched up one of the blocks. Whenever I make a quilt, I like to make one of the blocks first so I can get a good idea of how the construction is going to work, what pieces are going to fit where. That really helps so that I can sew the rest of the blocks quickly. This block has a short and a long rectangle piece, and then it's got squares sewn on here on the diagonal to make that nice point. So if you look over here, I've got all the pieces all over this board, all paired up. We've got a short and a long throughout the whole board. Now, when I was sewing the sample block, I noticed that every short piece gets this square sewn onto it on the diagonal, ironed open. So instead of pulling off pairs, I'm just going to take all these small pieces for the whole quilt, and I'm going to sew this piece onto them. Here's the whole stack of short pieces. Now you have options. You can mark the diagonal on the background there, place it here, and stitch on your marked line, or you can just put it on here and sew along that diagonal. I have a mark on my machine, so I normally don't mark the back of the squares. I just put that point right at the needle hole, and I put the bottom of the square on the line. And if you keep it there as you sew, you'll get a nice straight line. And I'm going to do that for the whole stack. I'm going to chain piece them. Once you have the whole stack done, you can iron it flat a little first. Press it in half along the seam line. Then we're just going to open this up and cut off the back 2 layers so it's not too bulky. I like to use scissors. You can use your rotary cutter if you like. So we're just going to do that for the whole stack. Now that we have all of these pieces done, notice they go here and here. It's just the same piece. Now we need to do the longer pieces. The longer pieces are done with the same procedure, but this is going to be facing a different way. So it's not on the same corner. Same procedure, but it's facing a different way. So be sure you do your first one correctly, then you can do the whole stack exactly the same way. The next piece we need is this unit right here, which is this here, and I'll show you how we get these. We took 2.5-inch strips and I stitched it together and ironed it, and now we're just going to cut it the other way. Now I've got several of these, so I like to layer them up. You can turn them upside down as long as you've got them straight on a line on your cutting board. And I like to stagger them a little bit so that I don't have a lot of seam allowances all in one spot. Now I'm going to make a first cut, and then I'm simply going to cut 2.5 inches all along here. Now we have all the parts and pieces to make one block. So I've paired up the long and the short, matching prints there. So we're going to sew this to this, that one, and that one. We're going to sew these blocks onto the end of those guys, then that'll go there and that'll go there. It's really, really easy to sew. So the first step is to sew this together. Now we're going to put this short piece on here. We're going to finger press that seam away from the light area there. Now the next piece, I'm going to put this back up here so I can make sure I grab the next piece. That's next. So this is going to go right there. These are really easy. There's no matching, no seams to match or anything. It just goes really fast. This seam allowance also goes away from the center, away from that light. Now this will fit right here. So I'm going to now sew this block onto here, this block onto here, then I'm going to iron all 3 of these units before I stitch them together. Now we're ready to sew the last 2 pieces on. These pieces are going to be sewn on with the method that I call sew and hope. So I hope that I'm going to get a nice straight line there. Let me show you what I'm talking about on the finished quilt. Here are the blocks. This is the seam that I'm talking about. We want to get this in a nice straight line. That one is perfectly lined up. The square is right in the corner. Same thing here. Now this one down here is not perfect. When I made this quilt, I did not even look to see if they were matched up. I just sewed, and when I was all done, I opened them up and they were pretty well matched up, and I said, oh, I hope they all match up like that. So we just call this the sew and hope method. I will show you how you can match it exactly, but it's pretty easy to do it without doing a lot of special matching. So we're going to sew this first seam. We're just going to sew and hope they match up, and then we will check it, see how close we are. I'm going to use a careful 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to stitch I don't know if you can see the threads very well here, but right where they intersect, that's where we want to stitch, right there. And we're going to hope that the lines will line up when we open the seam after we stitch it. Now let's see how close we got. It's pretty darn close there. We've got a nice line there. Once we iron it, that's going to be really pretty good. Now we're going to sew this one on, and I'm going to show you how to actually match it without having to hope that it matches. So we're just going to line everything up, and I think I better finger press this a little bit first so that that will lay flat right there. We're going to line everything up, but when we get to this intersection, I'll show you how to match it. The place we want to match up is where these two lines intersect, so we're going to put a pin right there. And we want this to go right a 1/4 inch away from the edge, right on that seam line there. So I'm just going to hold that in place with a pin, and I'm going to stitch toward it. And I'm going to take it out right before I get to it. And that should make those line up perfectly. That's a little bit better there. There is one block stitched together. This was the Sew and Hope line, and that is close enough for me. Now the other line down here where we marked it, it's a little bit straighter, but I'll probably improve on my Sew and Hope lines as I make the quilt. So I just need to make a lot more of these blocks. There's going to be 4 of these to make one big leaf block. So I'm going to continue sewing these until I have enough to put the whole quilt top done. I've got 4 of the blocks done here, and you can see how they're fanned around facing all 4 directions. And I've got this little teeny piece of sashing between these 2 blocks and also right here between these 2 blocks. It's just a nice little piece of sashing. Now we need to put the sashing this way, and there is that dark cornerstone right in the middle. So I've already stitched that in there. And now we're going to stitch both halves of these onto that center section. It's real easy because you only have to match these seams right here. And we've got the seam allowances ironed. Let me show you. These ones are going toward the center, and these ones are going away from the center. So we will be able to line those up, and they will nest, and they will lay down really, really flat. So that's the only matching that we have to do. Now I'm not going to press this at all right now. I'm just going to put the other half on right here. And I do find it easier to sew from the other side, so I'm going to flip it over. So all I have to do is match right here, and the seams are all nested, so it's real easy to get that matched up. You can feel it with your fingers if you pinch it right there. I like to iron this from the back first. So I'm just going to spread it out pretty flat. I'm not going to use steam, but I'm going to pull it open a little bit here and press this seam towards the sashing. Then I'm going to go back over to the top here, pull it away, and press that one down a little bit. The reason I'm not using steam right now is because I just want those seam allowances to kind of lay the way I want them to go. But I'm not able to hold it this way as I'm doing that first ironing. So now I'm going to flip it over. And you can feel with your hands if your seam allowances are still going the way you want them. And now, can you see how it looks a little bit crooked here? It's not because it's sewn crooked, it's just because it needs to be pulled open a little and then pressed. So you can make it really, really flat like that as you press. I've got all of the big blocks done. I made 12 of these big blocks. So I had to make 48 of these individual guys. And so that made 12 big blocks. And these are going to go together with a little space between them because we're going to be using some cornerstones and stashing cornerstones and sashing between the blocks. So one hint here, some of my blocks are exactly the same. This block here and this block here are exactly the same. I don't know if you can see, but they're just alike. And I don't want you to be afraid to do that, because I want the quilt to have a lot of variation, but sometimes that's harder if you make each individual block different. It's actually easier to lay it out this way, because now I can put one of these in this corner, one of those a couple rows up, and one in the far corner. And then I'll just turn them a little bit. They still look different. So we've got just a beautiful array of blocks here. Now we are going to put cornerstones and sashing between these blocks and between these blocks here, but every time we come to this large light section here, we're going to not put a dark cornerstone there because it breaks the pattern up too much. Let me show you what that looks like on the big quilt. Here's the cornerstones and sashing that I was talking about. So we've got this cornerstone here between these two big blocks, but right here we've got 4 blocks coming together, but we left out the cornerstone there. You could put it in if you like, but it will break it up a little, and I like that nice light area. And that's what the pattern calls for. No cornerstone right there. So we're going to have some longer pieces of the sashing that go right here. I made a bunch of these units, and these are going to go between the squares. So I'm going to put these all like this. I'll grab a couple just so you can see what I'm doing. They're going to go like this. Then I made a long unit that's going to go here. And this is the one with the long pieces. So this is going to fit right in here. And then this is where there's no cornerstone. So it's pretty easy to do, but the quilt just looks a lot better when you do not have anything breaking up that real light part there. So I'm going to stitch all of this stuff together. Then I'm going to put a couple of borders on. I'm going to do a light border, a skinny little dark border, and then I'm going to pick one of these fancy prints for about a 6-inch outside border, and I think that'll look really, really good. I finished the quilt. I've got it hanging up in our new store, which is not quite finished yet, but has a lot of blank walls for me to hang stuff up on. Turned out really nice. Now, Cozy Quilts says this is a twin size, but it's 71 by 92. It's quite large. I really like the blue in here. It gives it a nice pop. So here's one of the big squares, but we're really making just this square over and over and over again. Here's those nice cornerstones, nice and dark, and here's where we did not use the cornerstone, so you have that nice light area. We have an inner border here, the cream one, 2.5 inches, a 1.5 inch dark brown border, and then I did a 5-inch border here. The pattern calls for a 6.5, but it looked a little big to me with this print, so I cut it down just a little bit. I quilted it in a nice leaf pattern, which you can see when you get up real close, but it's a really fun pattern to make. The hope and sew method worked really well for matching all the corners. You can't see which method I used, matched up really easily. Now, this one turned out so nice that Matt said he would cut a new batik one. So around the corner here, follow me over here, we've recut this in batiks. So this is the harvest color, very similar to that first quilt I showed you, but we've got this available in a bundle now that Matt pre-cut all these strips on. So these are all batiks. Even the background, it's the buttercream 1895 from Hoffman. Now here I used the dark brown cornerstones, but I used a gold border. I thought that looked really nice with this big print here.
I hope you enjoyed Donna's version of the harvest quilt, and we've got ours done also. I think that little jelly roll that we cut, it came out really beautiful in this pattern. Similar colors to what Donna did. Hers was a batik, so it's a little softer tones, but it was earth tones. This is earth tones. It's Kansas City Troubles from Moda, beautiful fabrics. We used a real dark center square there and coming out to the border. The pattern calls for a 6.5-inch border, which we put 6.5 on this one. We also put a little sample of maybe a binding. This obviously is not binding because the quilt's not done. And so that one's very nice. we did another one over here, which is a batik, and it's from a jelly roll that we bought from Hoffman Fabric called Blooms. Once again, we used a very light background that has a little purplish blue tone to it. It just kind of pops these beautiful batiks off in this particular harvest pattern. We cut the border on this one, just to give an example, only 4 inches, as opposed to the other one, which calls for 6.5 inches on the pattern. I kind of like the smaller border just to look at the quilt. If you needed a bigger size quilt, you can put any size border you want on it. And then of course we showed a little sample binding that we might use on this quilt if this was the border. I love how both of these came out. Really beautiful. If I had to pick one of these quilts and, you know, which one do I like best? I think because of the time of year and also because of there's 3 different lines of fabrics in here from Kansas Troubles. All their designs kind of rhyme. For instance, this print here, which I really like in here, came from one of their Christmas lines, their latest Christmas line. And a lot of these other prints came from a line called Wheatland that we've used recently. So I really like the blending fabrics, you know, that rhyme together from different lines. The batik over here is obviously lovely. I love the way this border kind of pulls everything together. This is also beautiful, but with the time of year and just the way we kind of played with the colors in this one, I do like the harvest one a little better. Leave a comment if you'd like to and tell me which one you like. And I do read all your comments. I really appreciate them. Thank you for watching the video today, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to support our station, please subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time.